evening. I'd like to call the Board of Directors meeting January 11th, 2022 at 6:37 p.m. to order. Ms. Jackson, please make note that Ms. Lynn Foster, Ms. Gosich Sanders are remote, and Ms. Ashley Lane is absent this evening. Mr. Aiken, mission and role of the board.
The role of the board, we're going to trust the year for the current school and stay focused on the vision for the future school. No trust, no unity, no progress. The mission of the current school will foster community, generate enthusiasm, challenge students academically, and produce successful citizens.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to review tonight's agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Mr. Huffines, do I have a second? Ms. Merle, all in favor? Mr. Hackney, Mr. Huffines, Ms. Merle, Ms. Saunders, Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes for November and December meetings? Are there any changes, updates, questions about those minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for November and December 2021 meetings? Ms. Murrell, do I have a second? Mr. Hackney, all in favor? Ms. Saunders, Mr. Hackney, Ms. Murrell, Mr. Huffine, Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Aiken, do we have any stakeholder comments?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Moves us down to finances. Ms. Simmons?
Pardon me, Miss June, we can't hear.
So we're just presenting the November and December budgets for approval. Has everyone had a chance to review the budgets? Are there any questions regarding the budget? Do I have a motion to approve the November 2021 and December 2021 budgets? Mr. Huffines, do I have a second? Ms. Murrell, all in favor? Mr. Hackney, Mr. Huffines, Ms. Murrell, Ms. Foster,
Yes.
and Ms. Saunders. Thank you. Next item is the final 2020-2021 audit report. All of us have received a copy of that audit report, and we just need it approved for the minutes. Is that correct, Ms. Simmons? Does anyone have any questions about the audit report that was distributed? Ms. Jackson, have you gotten a copy of that audit report? I think it's, no, it would have, Ms. Simmons handed it out last time.
Oh, yes.
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 Yes. Do I have a motion to approve the final audit report for 2020-2021?
Make a motion.
Ms. Saunders, thank you. Do I have a second? Ms. Murrell, all in favor? Mr. Huffines, Ms. Murrell, Mr. Hackney, Ms. Saunders, Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Baker, the principal's report.
First, the principal report. Things remain to be funding focus for our Grizzlies. Here is the squad since November 2021 and December. Average attendance for November was 93.59, and the highest average was 68.97. December, the average attendance rate was 94.5%. First grade income tax average 97.5. Next day, we have the enrollment update. As of the 10th, 287 applications. And it shows the archive applications for grade level. And the enrollment as of January 10th was 653. And there are 43 students attending ACC. There was a 10th grade withdrawal to online school, and 3 seniors finished classes early. So we've added a few students, one for kindergarten, first, second, third, fifth, eighth, 10th, and 12th grade. For college news,
I'm sorry. So in the middle of the year, we kind of took from the wait list and I filled numbers. We had kids that dropped at the beginning of the year, so it's the mid-year. And so I just want to share a quick story since I think the board appreciate this. But we did have a student that Mr. Baker and I did take meetings with all the middle school kids and high school kids. And one of our middle schoolers has been on the waiting list since she was in kindergarten. And finally got the call in December that she had gotten into Clever Garden. And she was so excited. She said she screamed at her friends and said, "Do you know what this means? I get to go to Clever Garden." So that was a really cool moment for Mr. Baker and I. And that's another reason why we try to do one mid-year pool to get us back to 655 kids. And so that was a really sweet story. The kids that have gotten in are super excited to be here. So that was one of those kids when we talking about we added new students. One of those kids was one of our 8th graders. So very, very pleased and very excited. As it took a long time to get to Clever Garden.
That's
the
awesome.
parents, grandparents were just excited because I met them in the parking lot. And they're just excited. to get on it. And one said, "Please do an PTT service. I want to be on part of it." So I'm there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sorry, Mr. Baker.
That's okay. Okay, so on to college news. Based on information gathered today from the Common App, there are 24 seniors that have submitted 118 applications to 9 different schools, and there are 35 applications that are still pending submission. And these numbers do not include applications made directly through the college or through other forums. Some of the seniors have submitted to go to ACC or one of the universities with a co-admission agreement, which is listed there. And the other universities that suits the platforms too. In December, back and forth, we were out on break. The Christmas was open in the media center for about a week and a half prior to our break. The store was a huge success, and it was read, clothing, parents, and students. Yes, the administration team provided each student K-5 with a free book for Christmas, which is really fun to watch them get so excited about the presents, but they're wrapped for them. The girls you do is take all the book out, kind of got one of the soldier or something. I don't know. The Clever Gardens School, 3% of them participated in a Camp Free Drive and a toy drive. All their donations were given to Allied Church. Clever Gardens Forces performed a concert before Christmas break. All ensembles did an amazing job under Ms. Mary's direction. It's not just shouldn't be performing. For me, I think it's the first time. And this Friday, we'll have another concert with the bands under Ms. Bass' direction. Starting at 6 o'clock. The Clever Garden History Club participated in their Operation Christmas Child for 2021-2022 school year. This consisted of packing pre-printed shoe boxes with useful items such as socks, gloves, and toiletries. General Alexander Evan History Militia began this campaign with the help of many parents and students. These students went around school picking up boxes and filling during several of their packing parties. And with Wisconsin's help and Mr. Johnson's guidance, the district club did a fair shift dining boxes throughout the world. And one thing that was given to me today that's not interesting. I was excited about 5 o'clock. During the recent holiday season, the CGS Student Council collected over 300 thank you cards for our nation's veterans. This year, we were able to send some of the cards to CGS graduates who were stationed in the U.S. Embassy. And they made this thank you note for you guys. They signed it and so it's,
Oh, cool, thank you.
that was the speaker. Okay, last of our athletics, the winter senior night moves from February 4th to this big magical day. Board added a no health day. Senior night will take place on Tuesday, February the 8th. This will be a bigger event this year as we are adding marching band, board guard, and pep band senior school. Which I think is really cool. And on the back page, I just provided athletic schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Okay, moving on to old business, reopening update. Mr. Aiken?
All right, so, we got a lot of information for you to share today. As you guys know, COVID is definitely rampant right now, especially in our community, in our state, and so there's some great information here. We are feeling the effects of COVID, especially on campus. We have met our record, not in a good way. We made a record a couple weeks ago and had no cases whatsoever, and that was a beautiful thing. We enjoyed that, but that is not the case currently. So we have a large population of both students and staff that are technically out right now, either positive for COVID and or out on quarantine as being in close contact. So we did make an adjustment in our Sunday message to send out every week at request of one of our board members. We did break that down so you guys could see the information by school. So, elementary percentages, middle school percentages, and high school percentages, as well as percentage of staff that we have that are out, that are not allowed on campus. So that is something that it has been a challenge, to say the least, over the past 2 weeks. Ms. Cox, who's still our COVID coordinator, and our nurse assistant, Ms. Keller, have been quite busy in our front office. So some updates for you guys later today. I'd love you to stop by and check out our nurses station. It's still a work in progress. We have a few more pieces of furniture, but that has been a fantastic addition to our school. I've been able to use that space to quarantine children. We have started testing officially. We did our first round. I don't want to steal this class thunder. So I won't say too much more. I'll let her share, but we have officially started our first pool testing today. And so very excited with our kids, and they did phenomenal with it. It was fantastic. So she's going to share a little bit about that, about those mitigation strategies that we have in place. But it is a very challenging time right now. It is, we're pulling a little bit on our resources. Shout out to our amazing staff who comes in the morning with one plan, and then Ms. Cox and Ms. Dry or Mr. Baker pull them and put them somewhere else. Mr. Harold was speaking with me this morning, he's our janitor, and said, "Hey, do you need me in the classroom?" And so I'm trying not to scare him to death, but he is willing to help, of course, in any way possible. So we've had to pull pretty much, as many people as we could to cover classes. So shout out to our amazing teachers and just doing what they're doing and trying to hold down the fort for us. So a couple of updates. We had a great webinar this morning. So this is the joint call between DPI and North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. So it was great. I love the timing. It was fantastic. There has been some updates to our strong school toolkit that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But I did pull some highlights out of this, and Ms. Cox and I reviewed and thought that this was super important to share with you, just kind of give you some information and some data. To go behind some of the recommendations and things that we have for health and wellness, and some of the discussions that we've had over the past couple of weeks. So I want to start, like I said, the presenters today, Dr. Tilson, she's the State Health Director and Chief Medical Officer for the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. So they've done a phenomenal job of trying to keep everybody in the loop of what's going on and what we need to do, as well as our local health department. They've been great with putting us in touch with resources. So if you're turning to page 2, ignore the little numbers. I hate all like PCM, what you need to see in this PowerPoint. But this is one of the 4 key metrics that they were talking about. So you can see daily cases, you can see the percentage, visits, to the emergency room, those kind of things, and hospitalizations. But down the bottom left corner, you can see that the positive test, as a percent of the total test, we are at a record high at 31.1% positivity rate across the state of North Carolina. And that is the most that we've had since the pandemic started. So those are some scary numbers with some realistic numbers, so you can see kind of how the curve is going on. You can look, some of the data this Tox is going to share with you from the ABC Collaborative. You'll see where the peaks are usually around the holidays, you know, and our school is no exception to that. So we're up, we're coming back from the holidays, and we're seeing this incline as well. So definitely take a look at that. You turn the page. These are just some other just interesting facts that they shared today among cases. And saying that, hey, rates among 0 to 49-year-old age groups remain the highest. So I just thought that was interesting for you guys to just kind of see variation of different age groups, 0 to 17, 18 to 24, 25 to 49, and so on and so on. So just some information to kind of see the graph. You can see the peaks. If you look at the most recent, it's between August and September. Of course, that peak because everybody went back to school. So you're going to see some things there. You can turn the page. That is another graph that they shared with us today, talking about school age group compared to preschoolers. And again, kind of what I showed you before about you see the peaks and the trends. A lot of times we're going back to school. You can see over there to the edge, January 9th, you see the peaks going up again. Everybody's coming back to school after the holidays. So turn to page 5. This one has some interesting stuff on it they shared this morning. So the Omicron variant is spreading really rapidly. So you can hear that in the news, but where are they getting that from? So this is definitely a highly transmissible virus, a variant of the virus. This one is likely at least 2 to 3 times as contagious as the Delta variant. So remember when the Delta variant came around, everybody was nervous about how quickly that transmitted from person to person. Well, this new variant is 2 to 3 times as likely to be transmitted than the Delta variant was. So it talks about kind of where it's spreading and talks about the preliminary data. This was a little bit different. Between the nose and the throat, we've seen a lot of that. I'm sure we'll speak to that. A lot of sore throats, things like that, a little bit different than what we had in the last variant. So talking about vaccines, I just want to share this just because I want to kind of give you where we're at as a staff and as a faculty. But talking about vaccinations and of course, trying to encourage that. They did keep pushing today on the call that the vaccination and masking is the hugest, the biggest things that we can do right now that makes the biggest impact on trying to prevent the spread of the virus. So they talked a little bit about the boosters. So they were saying that the original vaccination, because you're getting people that they're telling you, well, I'm not going to get vaccinated because it doesn't work. So they're talking a little bit about how the mutation of this strand is what's making sometimes those vaccinations not as strong or as protected. You're not as protected with just the initial vaccines that everyone got at the beginning, but they're talking about the boosters. And so that second bullet point talks about the boosters that's out right now and how they increase protection. And it said that a COVID-19 vaccine booster dose restores vaccine effectiveness against infection of 75%, and then it reduces the risk of hospitalization by 18%. So that is something they are still encouraging everyone to do, is to get those boosters. And one thing that they said this morning too was they're encouraging boosters for everyone. Originally they were just the adult population, but now across the board they are encouraging that for everyone as well. So that was just some information there. We turn the page. So this is just talking about unvaccinated individuals. And of course, this is data as of January 1st. Unvaccinated individuals account for about 80% of COVID hospitalizations, which is a huge number there. So we, as a staff, as faculty, are continuing to encourage vaccination, our vaccines, for our faculty, for our staff, trying to protect them. We've had a lot of our student body as well get vaccinated. We do not have that number for you tonight. We try to have that for you in the February meeting, just to give you a percentage of our kids that are actually vaccinated. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ours here in just 1 second. So the next part of this is just the vaccination update. And I thought that was kind of neat on page 8. It talks about pediatric vaccination rates, based on this region, and North Carolina is leading the region in pediatric vaccination rates, but like sitting at 22%. So that was kind of interesting, and shout out to North Carolina. And then on page 9, this is talking about, this is some new information, truthfully for myself, that I learned today. I thought the rule was 6 months to get a booster. Today they shared that it has been 5 months or more. So for me, that was new information for me. So now folks are eligible if it's been 5 months or more with the Pfizer or the Moderna, and then 2 months or more with Johnson & Johnson. So that was just a cool little chart they shared. And then they talked about like the ages of the kids that have gotten these shots, when they're eligible to get their booster. And so now you are not considered fully vaccinated unless you have had your boosters if you're eligible. So for example, if you had your 2 shots, your 1 shot, however you did it, and you are eligible for a booster, but you haven't got it, you're not considered fully vaccinated. If you've had your shots in the beginning, then you get your booster shots, you're eligible, you have your boosters, then you're fully vaccinated. So that's going to kind of play into the number I'm going to share with you here. So right now, we have increased, our faculty and staff have been turning in their cards, copies of their cards as quickly as they can. Again, I had staff here say today, hey, I've gotten that. So just, of course, throw some of those variants in there, but our variables in there. But right now we're sitting at about 63% of our faculty and staff who are vaccinated, as in they've had the 2 shots or the first dose. Or I say first dose, they've had either 2 shots or 1 shot, whichever one it was originally. And 15% are fully vaccinated, as in they've had their initial either 2 shots or 1 shot, and they're up to date on the booster. So that is a goal for us to continue working on and encouraging with our faculty and staff to be fully vaccinated. That's definitely been a positive for those that have turned in their stuff. We're still seeing folks that are vaccinated that are getting sick, but for COVID and the symptoms and things that we've seen have been less severe for those that have been. So again, we're going to keep encouraging vaccination. And the last part I put in here, which is a cool thing I shared this morning, there's some scientific studies. So those of you that are like data folks and you want to see the science to back up some of this stuff, there is a link there. I have a copy of that. You'll have to see it. But this is just a review in masks. So such a hot topic in the nation much with wearing masks. But some of these data points are pretty interesting. At the bottom there, where it says your secondary attack rate is totally different between unmasked and masked. So it's pretty significant. So the secondary attack rate for folks that are unmasked, you're sitting at about 11.7% of getting the virus being unmasked, and then you're sitting at about 1.7% for masked. So you will see a lot of that kind of solidifies, our cautious way that we have been in regards to masks and the validity of wearing masks. I know that's been a question that we revisit every month. So that is just some additional data for you that has to do with masking and some of the studies that they've been doing since the pandemic started. And on this next page, last page, on page 12, it talks about clusters in regards to masks. And this, Cox, I'm sure we'll be able to kind of answer your questions about clusters. But of course, it's just like a web. It starts with one and then it continues. So we have been very blessed and on wood. We have had 0 clusters. We've gotten really close. Really, I'm just being transparent. We got really close over the past 2 years, but we have had 0% of clusters in regards since March of 2020. And like I said, I believe that is due in part to a lot of different things. It's due in part to our kids and our families being as cautious as they can, and our health and wellness team for putting on mitigation strategies in place, and that you guys supported. That's really beneficial for us. So this last page, we're talking about some of the things, some of the data that they have collected. And so talking about school districts that have optional mask policies, talks about compared to 6 out of 65 districts, there was 9% that had mandatory mask policies. So those folks that are getting sick, and then those that are unmasked or that are optional, sitting at about 45%. So those are the positive cases. Same thing going down here at the bottom, we talk about clusters. So if you look at the number of reports of clusters in schools that have masks as optional, sit at about an average of 7.2 versus the county schools that made masks required, sit at about 2.4% for clusters reported. So just to give you a little information, I know that's something that you guys asked a lot is about masks and why we asked them to, or why we're recommending to continue with masks. So I thought that data was super important to share with you. Does anybody have any questions about this document or this part?
I had a quick question. So you said so they redefined fully vaccinated? Is that North Carolina did that or?
So she's gonna talk a little bit about the Strong
Okay.
Schools Toolkit, and in Strong Schools Toolkit, they've done an entire section about, like how we send kids home, like how do we send them home if they're vaccinated, what counts as vaccinated. CDC, I hope it shows this, yes.
Yeah.
CDC redefined it? I have not heard of that. Okay. Okay.
But I'll let Jen speak to that, 'cause she's got that.
Okay,
document.
all right.
So she's gonna share with you a couple of additional documents from the ABC Collaborative, which is a group we've been sending all of our data to. Then she's gonna talk a little bit about the updates that are in Strong Schools Toolkit, which is what you're requesting.
So if you're looking at the package, you'll see the first part here that talks about specific level body. So I think this is really good, with our collaborative that we can also have just the agency collaborative team and big university since the beginning. This is data specific to Club Garden. So if you look at the second page, it talks about our primary to secondary cases. And we're in between that ratio of 5 to 10. But what I really wanted to point out would be on page 3, where it says total garden ratio of primary to secondary cases of all 2020, and this is as of October 21, was 10.3. This means that for every 10 children or adults who were infected with COVID outside of school and came to school with COVID, only one additional person was infected at the school. It's a very robust performance. As you know, it's our hope that with the Delta variant, that schools will have an aspirational goal to keep their primary and secondary ratio less than 10. Your performance relative to your peers across the country is very impressive. Congratulations and thank you for contributing the data to the NBC Science Collaborative. So I really wanted to share that, and on the last 2 pages, it shows our graphs. And, you know, again, for our numbers, they're high, but for our school with a population of 653 is very small compared to a lot of public schools. So I really wanted to share that data with you to say what we have been doing as of October 29th was broadcasted and spoken out during that ABC collaborative. And I love to tell this record in the sense that you know that either you're doing something right or you're doing something wrong, they call you by your first name and say, if you have any questions, please reach out to Jennifer at Clever Park School. She has been really good about this. So I just want to say thank you to Dr. Wellness who have helped us keep that going. Any questions about the specific for Clever Garden? So the next package, you can look at your leisure. I'm just going to go through this nationwide. So agency collaborative is through all of the United States. And I just thought that this was a lot of good data. It is a lot of information. So I don't plan on reading this to you guys all on my own. So some of the things that I really want to focus on for us is so it goes into the reported K-12 cluster, so you guys can see it's about midway. It's on it's like the second page after that the United States graph. It then goes into our face mask policies and that 21 out of the optional mask for the cluster compared to the 6 of 55 and for mask policy. The big thing is mask optional associated with 3 times clusters compared to universal mask. The next page that I won't call for now, I'm sorry, is that community transmission does not matter to make decisions in school should be open, because if you mask, you can deliver education safely. Community transition does matter as to what mitigations you decide to provide, and masking makes a big difference as community transition does up. Questions in regards to that? And, the strong school toolkit was updated, in December, and it has given us the vaccinated versus unvaccinated campus, and the CDC also went to the 5 days of quarantine. The way it's written in the strong school toolkit says that they quarantine for 5 days, but they return back even if they do have symptoms with a mask. So then we potentially would have students here who are having their symptoms or they're tested positive, they're able to come back within 5 days. If they are vaccinated and have done close contact, they do not have to quarantine. But if they are unvaccinated and have been identified as a close contact or a household contact, they have to quarantine for at least the 5 days recommended. Those were the biggest two changes into the strong school toolkit. And as I love to say, with all of that being updated, the close contact tracing still has not changed. Questions in regards to that? That being said, the health and wellness recommendations for the board, isolation in place. This helps us of not having any clusters and it limits the spread of school. Record-breaking numbers of students that are out on quarantine, and I can go ahead and tell you this week is not starting off with that. We didn't change immediately when the health department changed originally, which means when everyone started going from 14 days to 10 days, we kept ours at 10 days for the next couple of months. And I think that helped us with our mitigation strategies. And as you guys know, I love to say that our safety trumps the meetings. We would also like to continue with the mask requirement for the next month and reduce it in February. We would like to increase the disinfecting. Thank you.
Okay, any questions about remaining of the 10-day quarantine? About masks? Discussion? Comments? Okay, do I have a motion to accept the health and wellness recommendations for January 2022, keeping the 10-day quarantine isolation in place and continue with masks requirement on campus? Increasing. Yeah. So let's do first the recommendations. Keep the 10-day quarantine isolation in place. Do I have a motion? Mr. Hackney, do I have a second? Mr. Huffines? All in favor? Ms. Saunders, Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Hackney, Mr. Huffines? Those opposed? Ms. Merle? Do I have a motion to continue with mask requirement for the next month? Mr. Hackney, do I have a second? Mr. Huffines? All in favor? Ms. Saunders, Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Hackney, Mr. Huffines? Those opposed? Ms. Merrill? Any other votes for recommendations for the health and wellness? Mr. Aiken, the VTFC update.
So we did receive, feedback, we did have that audit and it is complete, we did get our, report back, so next month we will present it to you. The things we did also on, and the things, of course, we took the measures for we were drafting up our work plan, and so we should have that as for you, at the next board meeting. So overall, it was a great, monitoring visit. Lots of things that are going well with our beginning features program, and of course, areas that we need to improve. So next month, we will bring you, show you the rubric and then show you our work plan. Fix the, areas or elements that we were not sufficient.
Any questions for Mr. Aiken? Okay. Moving on to governance, committee updates. I believe only long-range planning has had activity during the holidays and such. Mr. Huffine.
Yeah, we've been having a whole lot of activity. So I'm pleased to report that things are still moving very nicely. So we're making a lot of progress, having a lot of meetings, having a lot of discussions, still tweaking the design. But we're looking at trying to go through permitting and things like that within the next couple of months. So that's where we're at right now. I mean, we're talking about utilities, we're talking about Duke Energy, gas, septic, well, and a whole lot of design stuff as far as the interior finishes and things like that. So overall, I'm pleased. Things are moving very nicely. Like I said, it's been busy. I don't think there's been a dull moment when it comes to our expansion project. So, but I think we're looking pretty good right now.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Huffine. Moving on to new business, food inspection report. Ms. Simmons?
In the packet, we have our cafeteria food inspection report that was done in November. We're going to be at our cafeteria report with 99 full-time.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Mr. Aiken, the 2022-2023 school calendar amendment?
Take that.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Excuse me, Ms.
Any
Jean.
other items?
Excuse me, Ms. Jean. Could Ms. Aiken repeat that? I didn't hear what she said about the calendar.
Can you say that one more time?
Could you just repeat what you said? I couldn't hear you about the calendar.
Yes, ma'am. So yes, we have an amendment to the calendar for the school year, but there was an error on the version for you guys, and I want to make sure it was accurate. So I've tabled that. I will bring that back up at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay. I believe we have a few items for closed session. At this time, do I have a motion to move into closed session? Mr. Huffine, second. Mr. Hackney, all in favor? Ms. Merrill, Mr. Huffine, Ms. Saunders, Mr. Hackney. And I believe Ms. Foster is on. Okay. At 7:16, please know we have moved into closed session.